that I feel like a lot of people really, really need to hear. For like the past couple of weeks, I feel like I've had more people, as in leaders from my team, just come to me and say, this is going on, or this is going on, or, this is happening in my life. And it's not necessarily business related all the time. It's just things that are happening, family issues, relationship problems, a loss in family, maybe it's not even 100% negative things, just feeling overwhelmed and having so much on your plate at one time. So I thought, what better person than Claire, because Claire has an amazing story, you guys. And just while planning this Zoom, I was getting goosebumps because I was like, this is going to be so, so good and add so much value to those of you that just kind of feel extremely overwhelmed. You don't know how to handle everything that's going on in your life, everything that's going on in your business. And so if that sounds like something that you really need, I'm really excited because I think this is going to really fill up your cup. And so, as a leader Zoom, we want you to take everything from this Zoom and be able to pour into your team for the rest of the week. I know Claire probably has a leader Zoom every week, and so mine is every Monday. And so every Monday, I want to start off this week fresh with a super awesome Zoom to help pull you through the rest of the week. And so I really think that these tips too, as a leader, when your team starts going through a lot of stuff, it can be overwhelming as a leader because you're like, well, how do I handle all this? And so that's also what this is going to be about too, is how to make sure you're handling it for yourself so you can trickle this into your downline. So Claire, you should be able to unmute yourself. I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone and tell a little bit about your life with us.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me on here. Cheyenne, I really appreciate you having me on here and letting me be here to talk to you guys. I'm excited to share a little bit with you, and this isn't a topic that I take lightly, sharing with you guys about life happening to you when you're building a business, because I definitely have had life happen to me while I've been building my business. And, I want to be totally transparent on the Zoom tonight and totally open with you guys. And so I'm just going to start at the beginning. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Claire Flores. I'm an ambassador, like Cheyenne mentioned, and I have been in this business now for 4.5 years. I got started in July of 2015, and I started as a young mom. I met my husband when I was 17, and we got married when I was 18, and I became a mom at 19 and had 4 kids by 25. And I remember kind of looking around my life and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm lonely, I'm isolated, we're broke, I'm exhausted, and there's got to be more. Like, there has to be more that I was made for than this. And so I started to look around for an opportunity to just create more options for our family. And that was when I found It Works from my beautiful enroller, Alyssa Billiou. She was posting all over Instagram about her business. And I reached out to her, asked a few questions after 15 months of watching her, and got started and went executive in 14 days, Ruby in 25, Emerald my 2nd month, and then I was Diamond and my husband was Emerald by our 4th month, and that was enough to bring him home. And so we did. We brought him home at that point. And it's funny, when I started this business, I scrawled out on a piece of paper in blue highlighter, retire my husband, and I pinned it to a bulletin board in my little corner that I called my office. And I just had this desire to retire him. And I didn't even know why. It's not like he had asked me to retire him. I just thought, wouldn't that be cool? To me, that was like the height of success, right? To be like a sugar mama and to be able to retire my husband. That felt like the height of the success that I could have. And I didn't know why that was my goal. It just was. And retired him in 4 months. 2 months after that, we started making 6 figures. And 2 months after that, we got our first $20,000 monthly paycheck with this business. And it's just been absolutely incredible ever since. We're top 20 income earners right now, which is still crazy. I don't even feel at all worthy or ready for that, but God is just really, really good. And this business has blessed and changed our lives in so many ways. But that said, retired my husband, like I said, 4 months into my business. I went triple diamond 8 months into my business, and 1 year after that, I went presidential diamond. And the summer that I went presidential, my husband, we were getting ready to go to green carpet, and I had a bunch of things on my dream board that were sit on the white couch, be invited to a special corporate event, be invited to speak on stage. I had all these things, you know, these big things that I had written down on my dream board, and they were all happening for me this one summer after I went presidential. I was invited to speak on stage. I was going to walk the stage as a top 100 income earner, which was, I'd never walked before as a top earner. And I was invited to Pam's house, and she had like this beautiful party at her house, and I was invited personally and got an invitation. I was so excited. And the week before we went, my husband was just having some kind of funky health issues, and had noticed a lump and kind of said, you know, this is weird. And we thought it was connected to some other stuff he had going on, like a minor surgery he had had a couple of years before. And I was like, why don't you just go to the doctor? We're about to travel. We were going to go to Florida for green carpet, and then we were going to go on a vacation afterwards. And I was like, why don't you just go get it checked out? Like, we're about to travel, like, just go look. And so he just went to like his normal doctor and went in, and I stayed home, didn't even think it was a big deal. I stayed home and did whatever, worked my business. And he came home and he walked into the living room, and his face was bright red and puffy. And I took one look at him, and I knew that something was seriously wrong. And he literally just took me in his arms and was like, they think I have cancer, and they think it's really bad, like the worst they've ever seen. And I was just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, and I can't travel. They need me in for tests, and I have to have a CT scan and an MRI, and I have to have a PET scan, and like all these foreign words that like we weren't even familiar with. And that snowballed into something that completely changed our life forever. And it's crazy, like cancer isn't like the movies where you find out you have cancer and then you instantly are in chemo and you've got, you know, the bald head and everyone's visiting you and making jokes. Like it doesn't happen like that. It's a lot of waiting and a lot of wondering and a lot of like, I don't know. And a lot of like, it could be this or it could be that, or it was just so much like limbo feeling. And it seems almost like petty in comparison with his life situation, but like I was crushed that I wasn't going to get to go to green carpet, and I was crushed that I wasn't going to go to Pam's house, and I wasn't going to speak on the white couch. Like all of that just like crushed me, and I was like, why are you doing this to me, God? Like, why now? Why is all this happening? So anyway, then my husband had surgery, and after surgery, the doctor came out. They removed the lump, which was confirmed to be a tumor. And after surgery, the doctor came out and he looked at me and he said, it's worse than we ever could have imagined. It's everywhere. It's all over his body. He said, I had to remove so much more than I thought I would, and I want you to go in and get him scheduled. My husband wasn't even awake yet. He said, you've got to call right now, and you've got to get him scheduled for an MRI of his chest and his brain. It's throughout all of his lymph nodes, and I'm very suspicious that it's all over his lungs. And so we took him in. He got the MRI after he had just recovered from surgery. I'm like, I know I'm going in depth, you guys, but I want to paint. I've never gone this in depth, never. But I want to paint a picture of just how difficult it was, so that I can set you guys up to realize that your business can still grow even in the hardest, darkest places of your life. After Brian's surgery, I had to help him use the bathroom. I had to shower him. I had to literally lift him up in bed. Like, this is all, I've literally never talked about this, you guys. I literally had to physically like put him in bed. I had to lift him to sit up. I had to feed him. I had to help him drink. I had to help him do everything. He couldn't do anything for himself. He was so sick. And then as soon as he was healthy enough, he was getting more tests, and they were confirming that it was all over his lungs. His lungs literally lit up. They were riddled with cancer. He had cancer all over his lymph nodes, and they told us it was stage 4. And they told us, listen, like, you go for chemo starting as soon as you're healthy enough to walk, or you're a dead man. And that's the options that we had. And we had all these people on Facebook as we're like trying to share our story. We had all these people on Facebook that were messaging us, telling us, you've got to go the natural route. You've got to do this. Don't do chemotherapy. It's going to kill you. Don't do this. Don't do that. And we're just like, we don't know what to do. And so all we could do was just trust the doctor that God had given us. And he started chemo, and they looked at him, you guys, when they were setting up his treatment, and they said, I hope you don't have a job, because chemotherapy is about to become your full-time 5 hours a day, 5 days a week job. And thank God for this business, you guys. thank God for this business, that God gave us an opportunity to retire my husband 2 years earlier, because God knew this fight was coming for us. And God knew that he couldn't be the sole provider of our home at that point. He couldn't. I had to be in that role. I had to be the breadwinner. So he had chemo, and things only got uglier. Chemo isn't the answer. It's literally the ugliest thing you can walk through. He was sick, flat on his back, didn't laugh, didn't smile. He wasn't an engaging human being. You couldn't hold a conversation with him. I literally would start to have a conversation with him, like he'd feel okay for like 5 minutes and he'd wander out into the living room. We'd start having a conversation. I'd be talking to him and I'd look back and he's just gone, like just passed out in bed. Like he just couldn't even, he was uninterested in life. He was uninterested in me. He was uninterested in the kids. He was uninterested in life. I had my kids crying every single night saying, when's our dad coming back? Because they literally felt like he was gone. It was so awful. But this is what I want to say, is that when things like this happen in your life, you are going to run somewhere. You're going to run somewhere. We're a fight or flight people, right? Like that's our natural instinct. You're going to run somewhere. But what you can control is where you're running. You can't control that desire to flight. You can't control that desire to run, but you can control where you run to. And so those nights when I was so broken, when I was trying to be so strong for him, I was trying to keep it together, but then I would go and be by myself. I had to make sure that I was running to Jesus, because he was the only one that could support me. He was the only one that could handle all of my pain. He was the only one that could be there for me through all of it. And so number one, where are you running? Make sure you're running to Christ. First and foremost, no matter what your relationship with him is like, whether you've known him for years and you're close, or whether you've never had an encounter with God, whatever you're going through in your life right now, run to him. He takes you where you are, how you are. There are no prerequisites for the love of Christ. He will take you wherever you're at. There is nothing that he requires to come to him. Nothing. So number one, just run to him and take everything to him. But number two, find somewhere to put that energy. And for me, it was my business. For me, my business is where I put that energy. And I just would go in my office and I just would work. He would pass out after treatment and I would just go work. And I would just sit and I would work. And it just gave me such an incredible and beautiful outlet to where I could focus on helping others and I could focus on the future. Because Brian didn't want to talk about the future. Brian wanted to talk about life insurance policies and his will. And Brian wanted to talk about setting me up financially so that I'd be okay when he was gone. And he wanted to talk about, where I was going to live and what the kids were going to do. Like he wanted to talk about that. And it wasn't in a morbid way. It was that got him through. That was how he coped. But that was really hard to listen to. And so to be able to go and hop on Zooms and talk to people about the future and talk to my team about their future and what their dreams were and what their goals were, that was so healing for me. And that was so powerful for me. So I just poured myself into my business and I just focused on it. And there's a quote that really helped me a lot when we were going through it. You don't know how strong you are until strong is the only choice you have. And I felt like people kept being to me like, what? You're so strong. Like, how are you being so strong? And I'm like, well, I don't really have an option. Like I have 4 kids that I have to take care of. I have a sick husband that I have to take care of. So I don't really have an option but to be strong, strong. That's like literally my only option. But I think just don't give yourself the option. Like that's the other thing too, is don't give yourself the option. Don't give yourself the option to fall apart, because you could fall apart. You absolutely could, but don't give yourself that choice. Don't give yourself that option. Okay, I feel like I'm kind of moving into like your questions and stuff, so I'm gonna pause.
I could just sit here and listen. Like it's just so good. And I just think that's the only thing I could think of is when you started telling your story, I was like, you still had, this massive business to run, and you also still had 4 tiny humans that need you. I mean, your kids are what's your oldest one?
My oldest is 10 now.
Yeah, so probably at the time they were too little to, just do their own thing, and they probably had to grow up a lot in that moment, but you were still taking care of so much. And I think that is something that a lot of these girls can take from, is that there's still so many other responsibilities. Like you just can't stop, when life happens. Life is not fair. And I think so many people have probably realized that. And so I need to open up my phone here to make sure I don't drift off as well. So I wanted you to kind of talk about, how you handled that while also handling the stress of your team coming to you and them coming to you with questions and you're sometimes not in the right headspace. How did you deal with all of that? And like, what did you find helped you the most balance it all?
I think number one, give yourself grace. Number one, give yourself grace. Remember that you are walking through a hard time and you have to give yourself grace and ask your team for grace. Like I had to ask my team for grace. I remember snapping at one of my girls because she just like wrote me just like, it was just petty. She was like freaking out about something small in her business, which was a really big deal to her. But in the moment, like with the news that I had just gotten that day, I like totally snapped at her. And I had to come back and be like, I'm really sorry. I'm just going through a lot. And she was like, oh my gosh, of course you are. Like because I just kind of went business as usual, I think my team kind of forgot what I was going through. And so sometimes I just had to like, just be open. So I think just be transparent, not transparent in a way that you're dumping on your team, but transparent in a way of like, listen guys, like I love you so much and I'm 100% here for you. I'm going to have bad days. Please have grace for me when I have bad days, but like, please still come to me. And I think also inviting them to still come to you, because I do think that in the beginning, my team felt like, well, we don't want to bother you. We know so much is going on. So they would struggle in silence, but that actually was hurting me too, because I needed this business to put food on the table and to pay for my husband's medical bills. And so I needed my business to continue to thrive. And so it was important for me that it continued to thrive. And so making sure that that line of communication was still open and letting my team know that I could handle that, but giving myself grace, asking my team for grace, and then also asking God for just a lot of grace to help me through that time. This is when you lead on your leaders. It doesn't have to be all you. And anytime you hear me talk about leadership, whether in connection with this topic or connection with anything else, you'll always hear me say that. It shouldn't be the you show. It should never be the you show. Make sure that you have your circle of leaders around you. And I literally, within 10 minutes of his diagnosis, had 2 of my top leaders message me and say, we're doing this. You're about to get your highest paycheck ever because we are about to work harder than ever for you. And so don't forget too that your team wants to rally around you. They love you. You're important to them. And so when you're open and you're transparent with them, that gives them the opportunity to step up and say, I want to be part of lifting some of the burden for you right now.
I love that, because I think so many times we feel as if we have to be perfect and we have to almost put up this front that there's nothing going on. But I feel like that almost just sets them up for failure, because when they go through something, they're like, well, you've never experienced it. When you're open and real with them and show them what you're going through, when they go through it, they come to you through the good and the bad, because they know, okay, she's been through this, she can walk me through it. And I think when you're open with them too, it makes them step up in ways that they never have before, because they're like, okay, well, crap, like Claire's not here. Okay, I need to lead this Zoom and I need to figure out how to answer my own questions, because it makes them level up through your struggles. And so that's another positive to come out of the situation. So perfect. Okay, so when you're going through all of that, how do you, I know you kind of went over this a little bit, but just making sure that you're still setting the example. You know, we are the foundation of our team, and no matter when we're going through good things or bad things, how were you still continuing to set the example for them through it all?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I poured myself into my business. That was a huge way that got me through it. And so my enrollments were incredible, because this was such a release for me almost. Like my business was such a good focus. And so that goes back to what I said of you can control where you run to. It's really that simple. Just control the direction where you're running. You're running somewhere. You're running to food. You're running to TV. You're running to friends. You're running to something. Adjust the course. It's really simple. It starts with really small decisions. Adjust the course and make the decision that where you're going to be running to is your business, because that, well, to Jesus first and then to your business, because that is going to be such a blessing for you through the whole process. And so I enrolled more distributors than I ever had in a month. I was like cracking the code on enrolling more customers than I ever had. My business was going really, really well because I was able to share from a place. And honestly, it was like, I couldn't always handle posting about the sad stuff or the hard stuff on social media. So it was fun to post about the lighthearted stuff, like about my business and about the products. Like that was fun. That was a good, easy, nice outlet for me. And so I was definitely setting the example with enrollments with my team. My team still saw me. I was still on Zooms. I was still setting them up. I can remember specifically there was one Zoom that we did where I got really tough news the day of the Zoom, and I was supposed to be the one interviewing it, but I reached out to one of my girls, Katie Rogers, and I said, listen, you've got to take over tonight. I just can't do it. but I still was on the Zoom. I didn't lead it because I couldn't keep it together, but I was on and my camera was on. And nobody knew what I was going through that day. My team didn't know. All my team knew was that I showed up for that Zoom. And so that's important. Here's the thing. You cannot disappear on your team. Please don't disappear on your team. They do need you. They might need you in a different capacity during this season, but don't disappear on them. That's the worst thing that you can do. And so just show up. Even if it's just your face muted on a Zoom, that they see that you're still there and you're still showing up. And you guys, and I'm not asking you to like turn on your camera all of a sudden. I'm not calling anyone out. But when I'm on a Zoom with my team, my camera is on. They see that I am there. They see that I am present. I am engaged. I'm not doing something else. I'm there. I'm showing up. I want them to look in my eyes and know that, hey, we're doing this together. We're on this together. We're in this together. And so that's always been important to me too, is that they get to see me, they get to hear from me. And I know how you mentioned like doing weekly Zooms. I do a weekly team huddle live on my Facebook page. And there are some nights that is the last thing I want to do. I'm exhausted. I've had whatever going on. It's the last thing I want to do is show up to that. But even if it's 5 minutes of giving my team my face, my energy, and my attention, they're going to get it because they're really important and they work hard all week. I can definitely give them that attention. You know what I mean? And no matter what I'm going through, they're worthy of that time. They're worthy of that connection.
That's very important too, because I talk about this with my team. You know, they don't, once you become a leader, they're like, oh my gosh, like this is actually really hard. Like having to come up with content for trainings every week. And, you know, there's a lot of leader Zooms that I'm like, I wake up the Monday morning and I'm like, okay, I have to come up with some form of content for my leaders that's going to fill them up to where they can like transfer that to their team every month. And it is so much pressure. But at the end of the day, I end up praying about it, reading a book. Like this was just laid on my heart this week because I was like, I just want my team to know that they're not alone. And so as you grow into those positions, you just realize, you know, even if it is the worst of you, it's still some version of you showing up for them. Because when it comes to the point of them in that position, they're going to say, well, my leader showed up every second of every day, even when she didn't want to. And so I'm so thankful that you touched on that because it's hard. You know, we're not saying you have to be perfect and that you're going to come and just be so prepared and, you know, have your whole life together, but you're showing up and that's what speaks the most volumes anyways. Really quickly, I wanted to kind of just read a couple of these so I asked in our Triple Diamonds and Above page about who had gone through life, and there's a bunch of posts in there, but I wanted an updated one to maybe people that have gone through new things. And so I want y'all, if y'all drifted off, come back to, I want to share just a couple of these. So Susan Wade, she's ambassador. She said, the month my dad died, medicated coma for 2 weeks, I went presidential 2.0. Okay. Number 2, diagnosed with thyroid cancer, had surgery to remove it, went to conference 3 weeks later and popped my husband as a diamond the month after, earning a $10,000 bonus. This girl's a presidential. I worked 7 days a week when I went presidential diamond. I did an 8-hour move out, clean the day I promoted, and earned a $100,000 bonus. My mom was dying from cancer, needed a transplant. I also just had I guess her son when I promoted to double and earned a $40,000 bonus. Then a few months later, I promoted to triple during the time I was caring for my mom, going to the hospital, caring for her son, and raising her 2 younger siblings. I mean, guys, I just want to show y'all. Can you see my phone here? It is literally pages and comments and comments on comments on top. These are all leaders in this page. They have all gone through something. And so I want you to kind of talk on that as just like, knowing things are going to happen. Life is going to hit you. That's probably not the only thing that's hit you in your life. And yet this business has been the backbone of every single thing that's happened.
Yeah, during my husband's cancer journey, one of my sweet girls, I don't know if she's on here tonight, but she's a diamond on my team, Jess Evans. She lost her husband very suddenly, very young, very healthy, like literally a personal trainer, like the height of fitness. She lost him very suddenly, like right in the middle of Brian's treatment. And like, so we felt that as a team. We literally walked through that as a team. But what I wanted to say and why I brought that up is that pain and suffering is like a gas. It fills the chamber that it's in. And so I say that to say, we all are going to go through stuff and it's going to be on different scales. And suffering is never a tit for tat thing. Like suffering, you're never suffering more than somebody else. Like literally, my husband had stage 4 cancer, but there could be a girl who just broke up with her boyfriend who's in literally as much pain as I am. because suffering is like a gas and it's going to fill whatever it's in. And the pain is pain no matter what. And nobody's pain is greater than your pain. Nobody's pain is like, you know, oh, well, what are you sitting? Like, I think, and sometimes as leaders, like we have to be so careful to not do this. Like, think about someone could come to me and be like, I'm having such a rough day. Like, you know, my husband and I are fighting. And like, I say this to Jess all the time. Like, Jess could be like, well, you should just be thankful that you have your husband. But she doesn't, because she's literally the most compassionate human being. But there's none of that. And as a leader, because this is a leader Zoom, as a leader, you cannot do that. You cannot play that game with your team. You can't be like, why is this girl complaining that her life is hard with 2 kids? I have 4. You can't do that. It's hard for whoever is living it. And so remember that and have compassion. And so remember that there are others around you that are suffering. And so you can't be so consumed in your own pain that you can't see others, because there are going to be other people. And honestly, Jess walking through that at the same time as me, we were able to lock arms and walk through our feelings together and walk through growth together. Whereas if I had just shut myself out and not been available to her, then I would have just stayed like in my own little world of pain. I would have just gone deeper and deeper. But instead I was able to look up and out. And the same with Jess. She helped me through my pain. Even as she's grieving her husband, she was still helping me and checking in on me and seeing how I was doing. And so we helped each other heal. And so remember the power of helping one another to heal. And we're called a team for a reason. Like this is powerful, you guys, what we get to have here, this family, these connections that you instantly have with the people around you in this business is really, really powerful. So don't take it for granted. These are the people that will literally walk through fire with you. These are the people that as you continue and grow in this business, they're with you for life. Like, I have met the most incredible caliber of people that I've ever met through this business, and they will walk through those things with you. So stay open to help them with what they're going through. Be open with what you're going through. Help one another. We're a whole group of people that are doing self-development all the time. Like, these are the people that you want to be around. These are the people you want in your corner when you're suffering. And then I think with like, you had mentioned, Shay, like saying like, know your responsibility as the leader. I always tell my team, like, there's a mantle of grace on me as a leader. There is a mantle of grace on you as a leader. Like, like God has appointed you as a leader, therefore you have grace for leadership. And what I mean by that is you can handle it. Even if you don't feel like you can handle it, you can handle it. God's given you grace for the role that you have. He's given you the number of people in your team that you have for a reason, because you can handle it, because he's given you grace for it. And so I always tell my team, come up with what's going on. Come up with your problems, come up with your suffering, come up with your negativity, come up with your complaints. I can handle it. Your sideline sister can't handle it, because she wasn't given a mantle of grace for your problems. I was. I'm the one who was given a mantle of grace for you. And so don't go to your downline. They don't have the mantle of grace for you. Don't go to your sideline. She doesn't have the mantle of grace for you. You're going to end up actually tearing her down and damaging her. Go up, because that's where the mantle of grace is set. There's an order to things. God created things with an order. So please go up when you need that support, when you need that love. And what that means is that look below you, because there are people that are going to be looking up to you, and you have to be available to them. You have to be prepared, and you have to have your arm outstretched so that when they're suffering, you're ready to receive them and you're there for them. And what it also means is, just like Cheyenne said, on those Mondays when she's struggling, like, man, sometimes you guys, we're empty, because you're all leaders. There are times that you're empty, and someone on your team is going to come to you and be like, oh, this loyal customer was so rude to me today. And you're like, 3 loyal customers were so rude to me today. And I'm like, I have nothing for you, but we have to come up with something. And we come up with something and we throw out exclamation points and heart emojis, and you think we're all great. But in reality, we're empty. We literally have got nothing. But you come up with it, because that's what leaders do. Leaders show up. Leaders show up even when they don't have anything to bring with them. And that's when we trust God, because he can show up for us, because he never runs out and he's never empty. But make sure that you're keeping yourself filled up. So find a way to handle the mantle of grace that's been put on you. And that comes from a leader for yourself. And that's either your upline or a mentor. Cami. For a lot of us top leaders, we're going to Cami. Have a leader that you can go to. Have an accountability partner, somebody that's not part of your business, somebody that you can go to that lifts you up. Do self-development consistently. As a leader, this cannot be a negotiable in your business, because there is only so long that you can BS your way through the problems that your team brings to you and the suffering that people go through. There's only so long, and it comes a point that people can see right through it, and that thin layer of BS that you've built up is just going to get broken through. So you've got to have something to actually back it up. You've always got to have something that you're reading. I always have a business book and a spiritual book. I've always got more than one going. I've always got this balance, and I've always got my Bible. So you've got to have that layer there, and then you've got to have your relationship with Jesus. Respect others' businesses and your pain. Remember that you're not the only one that feels what you're going through. Pain is like a gas. It fills the chambers you're in. There's no struggle. There's no comparison in struggle or pain. And then, yeah, I'm going to let you go into the next one.
Okay, yes. And I wanted to touch on that for a second because, guys, it was like probably 3 or 4 days ago before I headed to Dallas to do all the events and everything this weekend. And it was like one leader after another that was texting me about calling me or talking about all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I felt like there was like an elephant on my chest. And I was like, and I broke down after I got off the phone because I was like, sometimes it is so hard. It is so hard to be a leader. And for every single one of you on here, you feel that and you know that. But that's why you're called to be in this position, because yes, you're going to have more than you can handle sometimes, but God is the one that's going to get you through it. And that was a sermon at church one time, and it completely just like spoke to me, because now I use it in every single, position in my life that happens. And, my boyfriend called and we were talking about it, and he was like, you were called by God to be in that position. And that's why all these people are calling you, is because you've put yourself where they are. And you've gone through the things and you've been open about the things, and that's why they come to you. So y'all don't expect me to be perfect, just as I don't expect y'all to. And I know that people go to Claire just because they've seen what she's gone through. And so I encourage you that whether you're going through good or bad, or you're super overwhelmed or you're super stressed, when your team comes to you, that's a huge thing. That's incredible to have, because they feel that they can confide in you. They can tell you all the things and bring you all their dirty laundry, because you can sit there and take it. And it's not easy, but like she said, you put the hearts, you love on them, you encourage them, and you do the best that you can. And so I love that you said that, because it's so true. And I know too that sometimes it feels like, how many of y'all feel when everything is going great, your business is killing it, you're rocking it out, and you don't notice all the bad things. They don't seem as big. But when you have things going on in your life, and then in your business, and then with other people's businesses, it feels like the world is over, right? Anybody feel that? You're like, okay, well, 6 months ago, everything was great, and now everything is a disaster. I don't understand. I feel that. And I want you to know that me and Claire go through the same things that y'all do, just because we're leaders. And she's about, guys, she just got invited to go to Costa Rica. Hello. That's something to be acknowledging. But we go through the same things. And so I want y'all to know that we've been through it. We're still here. We're still killing it. We're still working our businesses just like y'all are going to. So one of the last things I really wanted to touch on is that this is the enemy. This is the enemy doing this to attack you, because, guys, there are so many big things coming. And I know that y'all can feel it, because we talk about it all the time. Like, this month has just been rising so much with enrollments and new distributors and all the promotions in Costa Rica and the incentive trip. Like, there's so much happening. So no wonder the devil is at full attack right now. And so I kind of want you to touch on that, of just knowing the difference between the enemy and God's glory, and like where we're going as a whole, and not to let this distract you.
Yeah, I really want to give you guys just kind of like, I want this to be a little bit of a sobering moment. And so I'm just warning you for that. But don't be naive and think that the enemy's not going to try to come after you. Here's the thing. He will always try to corrupt wealth. He always has, and he always will. He will always try to corrupt that desire for wealth and power. He will always try to corrupt the concept of money. It's something that can be used for such evil, but can also be used for such good. And he knows that. And so he'll always try to corrupt that. And the business that we're in and what we're doing, we have the potential to create legendary level of wealth, a legendary level of resource. And the good that we can do with that is not lost on the enemy. He knows the good that we can do. He knows that this is a Christian company, a company that loves the Lord, a company that wants God's will to be done on earth, a company that wants to give back, a company that wants to change lives for eternity, and he doesn't like it. And so don't be naive and think that he won't try to come after you. Don't be naive and think that he's not going to try to get in the way of your success, because he knows that wealth is powerful in the hands of good men and women. And so don't be naive, but remember that greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. Remember that and never forget that. And then I wanted to share something that I just heard at my church this Sunday. It was just an incredible talk, and he shared how when Jesus died on the cross, okay, I'm gonna get real spiritual on you for a second. So I hope you guys are all okay with that. So when Jesus died on the cross, we know that he died on the cross. He said, "It is finished," okay? And then he descended to hell for 3 days. And he went there to get the keys to hell and the keys to death, because he triumphed over them and gave us eternal life in his own blood, which he bought for us with his sacrifice on the cross, okay? And so when he was down there, he got the keys. He took the weapons from the enemy, okay? So catch this. He took the weapons from the enemy. In Luke 11:21 through 23, it says, "When a strong man fully armed guards his estate, his possessions are secure. But when stronger than he attacks and overpowers him, he takes from him all his weapons he trusted in and divides up his plunder." Okay, so the enemy wants to try to take our weapons from us. But Jesus had the final word, had the final say when he came, and he took the weapons from the enemy. And so here's how that plays out into your life. Rejection is a weapon that the enemy tries to use against you, but it's not his weapon, it's your weapon. Fear is a weapon that the enemy will try to use against you, but it's not his weapon, it's your weapon. Sickness is a weapon that the enemy will try to use against you. It's not his weapon, it's your weapon. Because in sickness, you have the opportunity to show the glory of God and his healing power. In rejection, you have the power to show that you are worthy, you're bought with a price, you are loved, you are not rejected, he's rejected, you are not rejected. And with fear, that's your weapon, because the only person that has anything to fear is the enemy, who has already made his choice and is cast out of the love of God forever. So don't let him come against you with any weapon. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. You have the power of God. And this business that you're building, as you are pursuing wealth, as you are pursuing the opportunity to change the world with the resources that God is giving you, know that you have God on your side, and you have all of the power in the entire world on your side, because greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. And so rest in that and trust in that, and know that when battles come your way and when things come up against you, know that you're always victorious. No matter how things play out here on this earth, your victory is sealed in eternity because you trust in God. And so you can rest knowing that. And there was this knowledge as we walked through cancer with Brian that no matter the outcome, we had already won. No matter the outcome, whether it went the way we wanted it to or the way we didn't, we had already won, no matter the outcome, because God had already sealed the victory for us in eternity. And so have that long game perspective, you guys, with your business, with your life, with the trials that you come through. Have that long game perspective of eternity, but also have that long game perspective of, I'm in this business, I'm building a lifelong business. So if there are any leaders on here tonight that are hearing Shay and I talk about some of the harder sides of leadership or the harder times in our business, and you're going, ooh, I don't know if I signed up for that. I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I want the enemy to attack me. I don't know if I want all of these things. Have that long game perspective, you guys, that this is a business that you can build and a legacy that you can leave for the rest of your life, and it is worth it. It's worth every single second of it. There is not an opportunity out there like this, where you can build this level of resource and wealth as a college dropout and a stay-at-home mom that literally probably couldn't make $7 an hour if I went out and tried to get a job right now. But instead, I'm a top 20 income earner in a company. Like, what even is that? That's the grace of God. That's the power of God. And so when you put your trust and your faith in that, then it doesn't matter what comes against you. None of it matters, because the battle belongs to the Lord and it's already won. He already finished it. And so just rest in that and trust in that. And yeah, That's it for the enemy side of Facebook.
Amazing. I love that. And I want to kind of just bring that emphasis back to, guys, my team I know has heard this a million times, that I say every 6 months, something is going to happen, whether it's good, bad, overwhelming, too much to handle, whatever. But you're going to find that you need to work now. Like Claire felt the calling to retire Brian because God already knew this was going to happen, and he was preparing her to handle the fight. And that's exactly what you're doing in this business. You joined this business, like for a long time, I was like, why did I join this random business right in high school? Like I had no idea. And then my dad lost his job. I had to take over everything. I had to help him through that. I had to go, I mean, there's so many situations where I sit back and I'm like, well, where would I be right now? Like if I didn't have this, what would be happening? Because it just, every level brings greater battles, and that's so true. And so I want you to challenge you, if you are on here tonight and you're like, well, nothing's that bad, like I didn't go through that, you don't know. And I'm not wishing that upon you. I'm preparing you. I'm showing you that there's so many things that are going to happen that you need to be ready for. And so I wanted to just end it with just a simple game plan, because I know some people are like, well, okay, I got all this, I'm prepared, but like, what do I do now? Like, where do I go with all this information? Get to work, okay? And my game plan for you is 4 simple steps. Number 1, strip away all the excess. You know, when Claire was going through that, she worked her business, she took care of her kids, she took care of Brian. There was no extra because she probably didn't have the energy to, am I right? So there's so many things that you're probably going through that you're doing so much extra stuff that you don't need. Don't overcomplicate it. Just strip of the excess and do what is like the most required of you so that you can do it all. Number 2, grow yourself. Just like she said, your personal development. You have to make sure that you are pouring into yourself so that through this point you can pour into others, even though you may not feel like it on your worst days. You can just regurgitate self-development, okay? And number 3, find the lesson. Maybe you're going through something that you need to learn through. I've learned the most about my business in the worst parts of it, in the parts where I was like, well, what the heck is going on? I learned the most through that, and that's why I am where I am. And even through her husband having cancer, she learned so much about leaning on God and being able to pour into her team and having them step up in ways. She learned all of that through that. And so find the things that you can learn through that. And number 4, move. Start moving. You're not stuck. And please go watch the Pam Souter podcast that she just did. And she also just went live about it right before this. You're not stuck. The enemy is convincing you that you're stuck. You just have to move. You have to put one foot in front of the other. Even if you feel frozen, you don't know what to do. You're like, I want to move, but I don't know where. Just go. Do it. Watch your personal development. Go enroll customers. Go enroll distributors. That's it. You don't need anything else. There's nothing else required of you. And so those are my game plans. Claire, if you have anything else that you want to add to that, maybe things that helped you. If not, I think you've spilled it all out for us. So everybody, please say thank you. Thank you to Claire. Thank you so much for being vulnerable with us and sharing that. I didn't know hardly any of that. And so I think that that just shows you that, guys, it doesn't matter what you're going through. This business is here. The people are here. The freedom is here. The financials are there for you. Work now. So maybe if you aren't going through it now, when you are, you're ready and you're prepared. And so start moving, get to work, go take this moment, learn something from it. And thank you so much, Claire, once again for doing this. This will be up on my YouTube for y'all to share along, but I hope you'll have a super awesome week and go help people on your team that are going through this and be that leader for them. So love y'all. Good night. Thank you so much, Claire.